Hi guys, welcome to Solution Architect channel, and excuse my face. The reason I made this video is for those that actually don't understand what a solution architect do on a daily basis. You should know by now, if you follow my channel, that I have 28 years in IT. In the past 8 to 10 years I've been with doing architecture and enterprise architecture, application architecture, and a lot of solution architecture. So I've got a few slides that I want to show you if you aspire to be a solution architect, and if you want to move from development into solution architecture. What should you know? What should you learn? Teach yourself. How are you going to get there? Also, the deliverables of what a solution architect do on a daily basis, and what do we deliver at the end of the day. So I'm just going to jump into it quickly. I don't want to spend a lot of time in this video, but I want to just make sure that you understand what a solution architect do on a daily basis. We drink a lot of coffee. Believe me, I have a few cups in the morning just to wake up, but I love my coffee. Anyway, so different types of IT architects that you get. It's not only solution architecture. I'm going to focus more on just solution architecture, but there's different types of architects you get in IT. You get an enterprise architect. He will more look at the enterprise. He'll understand the business capabilities and how the application roadmaps is developed. He'll be more on a strategic level, working with business and IT to understand technology, new technology to be implemented, things like that. There's a lot of things that goes into enterprise architecture. I'm not going to go into right detail because this video is only solution architecture. Then you get your business architect, focusing on business processes, but business capabilities and how to improve business itself. Not a lot of companies use a business architect. I think it's really important when it's a large corporation where they need to enhance their processes, enhance their capabilities, and focus on how to improve those things. Then you get solution architect, mostly works on projects, but also have a broader knowledge on the different technologies. Need to understand the business, need to understand business processes. He needs to understand technology, how to implement. I would say, from my perspective, a solution architect need to have technical background, at least in programming. I'll get to that very soon. Then you get an application architect or a technical architect, someone that specifically focus on a technology or on a specific application. Just to give you an example, it can be someone that's got a lot of AWS cloud experience, or it can be someone with Azure experience, or it can be a Java expert, or it can be a C# expert. Then you get a data architect. I would say a data architect is very important as well. Not a lot of companies have a data architect only focus on data strategy, but that's what a company is all about, is their data. It's very important. That's why data breaches are happening on a daily basis. But if a data architect comes in, he needs to understand what is the data that this company is using, how do we use this data, how do we actually store this data and secure this data. What is it all about? Is it master data? Is it our customer data? Is it transactional data? What is, and how do we deal with all of those type of data? So that's why data architect is also very important. Then someone looking at the infrastructure, the servers, the networks, all of those things. Infrastructure is very important. A lot of infrastructure architects becoming now specifically experts in virtualization, how to virtualize certain servers, things like that, like VMware. Then also specifically for cloud, you get infrastructure cloud architects that focusing on how to implement infrastructure in the cloud, how to secure it, how to implement new servers on the cloud, either AWS or Azure or other clouds like Google. And I'm sure there's much more than that as well. Like I said, a cloud architect, but you also get, in the cloud architect, you get different types of architects. Architects focusing on platform as a services. For example, in AWS, you have ESC, you have EC2, you've got Kubernetes, you've got all of those cloud services, and some of those architects is more software orientated. The same with on the Azure side, on how to virtualize a server, also how to use some of the cloud services like the application services, the IoT hub services, all of those things. So next, what is the responsibility for a solution architect? Now, this is my interpretation. Every company might be different. Now, I've worked for different companies as a solution architect, and the responsibilities were a little bit different between the companies, but I tried to actually make it a little bit more generic, so that you can understand high level what should you know. What is your responsibilities as a solution architect? It is basically mainly for most companies, it's actually a solution architect sits here in the middle and works on projects. So there's new requirement coming in, new projects coming in, or maybe a big change to an existing application or integration or whatever. Now that solution architect sits there and needs to understand the requirement that comes from business on those projects. So he works very closely with business analysts or product owners or people like that, trying to then convert that into a technical solution so that your development teams can take it and develop the solution. He needs to make a decision as well. Not all companies use solution architects for that. They use the enterprise architects, or some business people make decisions as well. But depending on the company itself, they need to help and assist with decisions on, should we build this new requirement that's coming in from business, or should we go out and look for a vendor, see if there's a generic platform out there that we can implement into this company. And the solution architect play a very big role in the RFI process and the RFP processes, making sure that they understand what the technology are to be able to implement anything that coming new from business. Then he or she needs to be guiding the development teams on the solution architecture. So once you created your solution architecture, then that person needs to then go in and make sure that he leads. He needs to be a leader. He needs to be able to guide the teams, to show them what the standards are, to tell them this is the technology we're going to use on, and things like that. But I'll get that in the next few slides. And drink a lot of coffee. It's a responsibility to be awake and make decisions on the fly. So I like my coffee. What is the experience that I would say a solution architect needs to have? This is also interpretation from different people, but this is what, if I go out and look for solution architects, I will look at this specific very high level experience. Yes, there is going to be detail that the person needs to understand. Maybe there's technology that you use in your company and you need a specific person that only focuses on that. I would say you cannot be a solution architect with just 1 or 2 years experience, or even 5 years experience, unless you have a really exceptional person that understands the underlying implementation of everything. I would always say, if a solution architect can build a system on his own without any help, he's got enough experience. And I'm talking about putting a database together, understanding how the networks work, understanding how you will implement and deploy a system, understanding the different environments, dev, QA, staging, and production, how to deploy to those environments, how to operate and maintain and monitor and make sure security is implemented in those environments. So that's why a solution architect needs to have all this relevant experience. And that's why I say 12 plus years, and you wouldn't be able to learn all of that just in 1 or 2 years. That's basically impossible. From my perspective, a solution architect needs to have 1 or 2 programming languages on an expert level. My expert level is C#, not Java, but I understand Java. I know how to implement it. I've got other development experience as well, like C++ and Python, and like I said, C Sharp, and that was my main language for a very long time. Before that, it was VB. And then you also need to understand the concept and the implementation side of SQL. You don't need to be a SQL administrator, but you need to be able to write SQL scripts, store procedures, need to understand it, how views work, how relationships work in a relational database. All the new things are coming out now with databases like CosmoDB, the NoSQL, Dynamo, all of those new databases also. You need to understand databases quite well because everything runs on data, and that is quite important. You need to understand integration. In a big company, you don't only run one application. Big companies, very large corporate companies, always have multiple types of applications running their finances, running their admin systems, running their HR systems, and you end up normally with probably 20, 30 or 40 different applications that needs to integrate, and you need to understand what ESB is, APIs, how to FTP, how to secure your FTPs, what an ETL process is, all those different tools as well that you use for integration, and how you actually would implement. A solution architect needs to be able to either go into the level where you can understand what the interfaces are around APIs and how to build those interfaces, XML, JSON, RESTful services, web services, all of those things a solution architect needs to understand. Security is also one of the key components of experience that you need to understand. Authorization, authentication, and some of the tools as well, like Active Directory. There is things like Tivoli. You need to know how to implement a certificate, for example, using SSL, TLS, single sign-on, SSO, SAML, all of those things. You need to understand security quite well. A lot of companies have to secure their data because of PII-related requirements and things like that. Then you don't need to implement infrastructure, but it's good for a solution architect to understand networking, how networking works. You need to understand how to log into servers, how to implement and deploy on servers. It would be good to have multiple type of experience around Windows, Linux, Unix, AIX, all of those things is quite important. Then lately, a solution architect need to understand and have a lot of experience in either one of the big cloud platforms that's out there. I've got a lot of experience on Azure. I have a limited experience in AWS. I've only played with POCs on AWS, and I've implemented a few things already on Azure. But I understand the concepts. I have not really gone into Google, but Google apparently has got also a very good cloud offering. The top two in my mind is AWS and Azure. You need to understand architectural design patterns, architectural patterns, and design patterns. There's a lot of different types of patterns, and because of my background on integration, I understand a lot of the integration types of patterns. Then you need to have some sort of experience with modeling techniques, UML. So that you can create something. I've got a book here. I'm going to show you quickly. Not sure if you're going to be able to see it. I bought this a very long time when I was interested in architecture, called Document Software Architecture. It tells you anything about how to create a deployment diagram, for example, how to create an integration diagram, how to model your different components within a system for integration. All of those things. It's good for a solution architect to have modeling techniques under his belt. Then all companies have some sort of SDLC that they deliver their projects with. So have waterfall or agile type of delivery type of experience. You can't expect just to go write code and deploy it. There's always especially around big companies, there's always a process that they follow to be able to make sure that they deploy the things that they said they're going to deploy in the right order. I'm a big fan of Agile, of Scrum. I've worked in a few Scrum teams before. and trying to implement that into a big, large organization is sometimes complex and not that easy, but that is the future. Also, very much evangelist for DevOps, making sure automation and quality assurance is implemented in that. So it's very important that you understand SDLC. Communication. If you cannot communicate with other people, I had to learn this. I'm not a extrovert. I'm an introvert. Maybe you wouldn't say that for me creating these videos, but I'm an introvert. But I have to stand up in front of people, communicate my ideas, present my ideas, making sure that they understand what I'm trying to say. You're not always talking to technical people. You're sometimes talking to business people. I made the mistake sometimes where I go to technical and then the business person is like, I don't know what he's saying. Okay, so I have to then change over to layman's terms. So your communication skills is really important. It's going to be really important in being successful as a solution architect. Like I said, presentation skills as well. You need to be able to stand up in front of people, talk about your ideas and talk about your solution. So that is quite important. And I always ask the guys, do you drink coffee? Can I go buy you a coffee when I go for an interview? Or not me for interview when they come for interviews. It's really important. What is the day in life on an architect? I know I'm not pausing this video. I'm just going to play it through. My life is like standing up, logging into my computer in the morning. I work different hours because I work a lot with the Americans. My team sits mostly in America. That's where you will see I work from home today. And I'll only start in about an hour before I have to work. So I open my emails first. This is the first thing I do. I check all my emails, make sure I've got no important emails that I missed the previous day that I had to work on. If I need to reply on my emails, I will reply on my emails. Then the next thing is what you need to understand. An architect, it doesn't matter if you're a solution architect or any type of architect, there's going to be a lot of meetings. Not a lot of companies have significant documentation. We're always working towards that. We have a good repository where I work now. I'm not going to say my name of my company, but there's always a room for improvement when it comes to documentation. But to find out what's the new business requirement, what is, how are we going to implement this, talking to the development teams, talking to the business users, talking to your own team members. There's always a lot of meetings. Unfortunately, what we're trying to limit these meetings, I'm going to be honest, I hate meetings, but I know it's required. We have to talk to people. It's the only way actually to deliver a project successfully. So there's always half my day, 50% of my time, I'm on a call, meetings with other people, and trying to figure out the next steps. I do some modeling on a day, the hours that I'm open, and if I'm working on a project, I need to create some model. I like using modeling, a model tool that can actually provide a better discussion point. It makes it just easier to try and get your point over to other people. Just writing words and words and words is actually, people falls through the cracks and they don't understand exactly what you're trying to say. Then you need to make decisions. It's very important for a solution architect to make a decision, say, this is how we're going to implement this. This is going to be an API, for example. We're going to expose it via our API management tool, or we're going to create a microservice, and this is the way, and this is the database we're going to use, and structures like that. The solution architect don't really go into database modeling itself, but I'll get to the deliverables just now. But just know you need to understand how to actually create that data models. But normally we have a design team and very experienced developers that can do that. You don't want to take their work away from them. You need to be able to keep up with the technology on a daily basis. So I read a lot of things. I watch a lot of YouTube videos. Sometimes if I can, if my company sends me on a conference, I will attend the conference. Or if there's any like web seminar, I've done some AWS web seminars before. Just watch a lot of videos and learn new things. I'm keeping up to trend with all the smart devices, the IoT devices coming out. You need to keep up with the trend so that you can actually come back to your company and say, hey, I've got this new technology, like the edge computing, let's bring in edge computing for this reason, and trying to improve your skills and knowledge all the time. That's very, very important. And then another thing in a day in life of architect, obviously, you're going to guess it, drink a lot of coffee. Okay, unfortunately, I don't even have my coffee with me. So the actual deliverables that a solution architect deliver on a daily basis, no, not on a daily basis, but this is your deliverables. So if you work on a project, this is what you're going to deliver. A conceptual architect, it's just a concept. So you'll get an idea from business. They say, oh, I've got this new thing I need to implement. It could be in your current application, or it could be something new. Then you go away, you talk to a lot of people. We are a bunch of, I think, 6 architects who work in the same environment, or for the same business group. So we talk to each other, say, hey, I came up with this conceptual idea, this conceptual architecture. We create some sort of very high level document and discuss it, go back to business, say, this is our idea, is that good enough for you? And then we go to the next level. And the next level is basically then going to the project, where the project will kick off. We'll have a lot of people around the table, business analysts, we'll have very senior developers, we'll have our project managers and all of that. And then I am a solution architect, and as a solution architect, this is very high level. Create a document with all these type of things so I can understand a different implementation for the project, like a context diagram, just showing the context and interactions between the different stakeholders and the different applications. Then create a solution architecture diagram which depicts all the different components as well as the different applications and integration for that applications to each other. If need to be, we create a very high level data model and say, okay, for example, say it's customer is our data model. Most companies does have a customer, but there might be different entities you want to depict in your data models. Your security requirements will always have security requirements. How do we secure this new components? How do we secure our integration? How do we make sure our data doesn't get stolen and things like that? It's quite important for us. And then the infrastructure requirement, how do we implement it? What is the infrastructure going to look like? Is this going to run on-premise in the data center? Is this going to run in the cloud? Then how are we going to develop and deploy it? What is our development stack going to look like? Some places might say we like Java, we like Spring Boot. Some places would know we like C#, we will like .NET. It doesn't matter, but you need to define that in your architecture. Say this is for these components. This is what you need to implement. Then you're including into that is our disaster recovery plans. We've got a lot of non-functional requirements that you have to create. I also create a lot of what is the objective of this project itself? Is there any constraints? A list of constraints. Is there any assumptions we're making? We don't know yet. How are we going to do that? Is there any risks that we are taking, and how are we going to mitigate those risks? So we have to work toward that mitigation for any risk identified part of the project. I focus a lot of integration because of the different applications we have. What is our integration architecture going to look like? Very high level, define your interface and say, okay, these are the interfaces that we had identified part of this project. And then the next level of detail, doing the design, will actually go into defining the attributes for each of those interfaces. Is there any architectural patterns that we need to use? Make decisions on that, so that's quite important. What is a architectural pattern? Are we going to use microservices implementation for this specific components? How are we going to deploy that? Are we going to use Docker, for example? All of those things gets put into your solution architecture. Then non-functional requirements, what is your response times going to be? If you've got a new web application that you need to implement, what is the business requirement for responding to that? What is the data volumes going to look like? What's the user interface we're going to use? Are we going to use It doesn't need to run on Explorer, on Chrome. What is that type of requirements? How many users are going to use it? You know, things like that. You know, like I said, disaster planning. You know, what is the volume of the growth of our data going to look like? You know, I'm talking about it from experience. There's no nothing else but the slides that you see in front of you. So there's a lot of things that we need to define to understand when we implement all these new things for business. These are the things that we need to look at. Then you can't make a decision just on your own. I work with a team of other 6 architects. We work with design engineers. We work with a lot of IT developers. And we get everybody together, all including upper management. And they come to this review board. You present your architecture to them. They review it. They make comments. They say, okay, what about this, that? You know, you go back, you make changes, come back to them, get final approval, and then you can go ahead with implementing that. That will then be a roadmap and a blueprint for your development teams to understand how they should implement all these new components. Like I said, and then part of the rest of the project, you guide your development teams. They ask questions. Things do come up and say, hey, this is not going to work anymore. We need to change. How did we do that? Then the solution architecture jumps in, try to understand the problem, and then come up with a new solution. And then you need to understand how to make coffee at the end of the day. So this was trying to have a very quick, so this was my solution architect. What does a solution architect do? And believe me, it's sometimes not an easy job. Sometimes you actually miss development. I miss development. That's why I do it part-time. And some of these videos that I have on my site will specifically focus on development. I will probably do more development videos going forward. But I just want to, for those that actually came into this, my YouTube channel, to understand what solution architecture is. This is more or less, you know, other people might differ a little bit from me, but I think this is a big, you know, very quick summary of what you need to know before you become a solution architect. And thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe to my channel for much more videos to come. Thanks.